Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy. What the hell, Buddymeister?
No, not Buddymeister. Knowledge-meister, Art-meister, Music-meister, Consciousness-meister.
What?
You know, Jimmy, I had a dream, and then everything became crystal clear. I am the reincarnation of Saraswati.
The goddess?
Yes!
You know what, buddy? I also had a dream.
You did?
Yes. And in my dream, you were no reincarnate. You were a degenerate, a chump.
I was?
I'm afraid so. You know, the dreams of educated men overrule the dreams of simpletons. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Deniz, the Buddymeister.
And since this year marks the centenary of legendary Bengali director Satyajit Ray, we are reviewing several of his many wonderful films.
We try to go through his filmography as chronological as possible, with some exceptions. And today we are going back to one of his earliest films, the 1960 drama Devi, aka The Goddess.
We have left it out until now because up until recently it was only available in really bad quality. But thanks to the Criterion collection it was just remastered and is now available on Blu-ray and on the Criterion channel in absolutely stellar condition.
Yeah, every single one of Ray's movies deserves such a treatment, and luckily many of them already got it. I think there are 15 or 16 movies available on the Criterion channel.
If, by any chance, you are not familiar with Ray's work, you should check out that immediately.
Devi, aka The Goddess, was Ray's sixth film as a director. It's based on a short story by Prabhat Kumar Mukherjee and it was released in 1960, 1 year after Ray completed the Apu trilogy with Apur Sansar. Devi stars Soumitra Chatterjee, Sharmila Tagore, Chhabi Biswas and Karuna Banerjee, all of whom we know through other films of Ray.
Devi is set in the 19th century. The patriarch of a wealthy family comes to believe that his daughter-in-law, Doya Moyi, is a reincarnation of the goddess Kali, to whom he is strongly devoted. As word of her supposedly divine abilities begins to spread, Doya Moyi begins to lose herself in the illusion with devastating consequences.
It's such a tragic story. I mean, I love the movie, but the story and how it all played out really killed me.
Yeah, first of all, let me say one more time how aesthetically pleasing it was to watch this movie in the quality it deserves. The cinematography by Subrata Mitro is really drop dead gorgeous. Second of all, I agree, the story is quite hard to take, but I think that's because it's actually surprisingly relatable and realistic. And it's literally something that you are confronted with almost every day, especially in the times we are living in right now. Not with this specific idea of a goddess reincarnate, but religious bigotry, superstition and a classic battle between faith and science is ever present.
This movie made me angry, and that fits to what you just said. But it of course also shows that it provides quite a universal approach, which is interesting because we were a bit hesitant with Devi, because you've read that this is the most Hindu of Ray's films, meaning that it can be quite difficult for someone from a different cultural background to fully absorb the film without missing its many little details and nuances. And while that might be true, it's still very much a movie that I could connect with.
This specific story is certainly foreign to me, but the concept of reincarnation and the blind belief in something is universal and timeless. Religious fanatism is something that unfortunately is still bothering us today. But even if you strip away the specific Hindu Orthodox religion, there was still a lot to connect for me. Something quite personal, to be honest. At one point, Soumitra Chatterjee's character Uma is seeking advice from a professor on how to deal with the situation at home. And the professor tells him that such a conflict of beliefs must be confronted and that it will include suffering. In my family, religion has never played a big role, almost none at all, but my parents are unfortunately very open to stuff like alternative or rather pseudo-medicine. And there has been a conflict between us and it was indeed very difficult and also painful. And when one of the film's most dramatic moments is about the choice between superstition and taking actual medical advice to help someone, I am very much able to relate to that.
Let's talk about what Satyajit Ray did here. You can clearly see that Devi is part of his early work. It's a bit stringent, it has a clear structure narratively, but also visually. So if you're familiar with Ray's work and how it changed over the decades, you could pretty much guess when this one was made.
Devi has a super dense atmosphere through the camera work, the production design, which is filled with so many details, but also the music and of course the fantastic performances.
Yeah, I think it only took me a second to fall in love with Soumitra and Sharmila all over again. And all the interactions between the characters are so real. For example, when Doya Moyi is playing with the little boy Koka, who reminded me so much of Apu from Pata Panchali.
And what a fantastic performance by Soumitra Chatterjee. It's honestly one of my favorites, and that's really saying a lot because I have seen him in many great roles in many great Satyajit Ray films.
I think Apur Sansar and Kapurush are my top two Soumitra performances, but this one is right behind.
Of course, his character Uma is the one we are able to identify with the most. The one who is seeking a better education than the generation before him, or at least a different education. The one who points out how absurd it is that a dream should be proof that his wife is a deity.
Yes, and you can feel how much this conflict bothers him, how much it tears him apart inside. It's heartbreaking. When he returns from college and sees Doya sitting there, being worshipped by everybody, he's so shaken. Soumitra is amazing. Also later when he witnesses the ritual with all the bells, he's so terrified that he just runs.
Devi was only the second film for the super young Sharmila Tagore, the second collaboration with Ray after Apu Sansa, and she's terrific in the titular role. Her character is the most ambivalent. The other ones around her are easier to grasp. Their positions and convictions are clearer. Doya is the one in the center. A young bride who is entering the household and family of a newlywed husband is under a lot of pressure anyway, but in this case there's also this divine burden, a role that has been decided for her.
She's snatched from her everyday life at a moment's notice, just because her father-in-law, played by Chhabi Biswas, who we know from Ray's The Music Room, had a dream. It's madness.
She's under tremendous pressure and her face is almost always covered in a few tears. She's also so very young and it's a complicated, challenging situation. Especially after that little boy seems to be cured because of her.
And that makes her think. I mean, she and Uma are already on their way to the riverbank to flee to Kolkata, but then she stops and asks herself, what if I am the goddess? So this seed is planted in her mind so deeply that she just can't leave. And by the way, that scene when they walk through the cornfield towards the riverbank is one of my favorite scenes. It's so tense, almost like in a thriller.
One of my favorite scenes occurs before that, the moment where the father of the little boy laments and sings. Devi has such a beautiful flow, such a poetic rhythm with the music, camera and editing. It's beautiful.
Everything's so coherently built and again masterfully observed by Ray that you really become a part of this emotional roller coaster ride, which essentially only goes downhill because in the end everything is lost. Doya's lost, she's gone. There is this crucial scene where Koka plays with the ball and it rolls into Doya's room, and you can see that she wants to play with him so badly, but all she manages to do with all the power she has left, it seems, is to vaguely smile. It's tough, and again, Sharmila is incredible.
I was quite surprised, but also happy how strong and out in the open the clash between father and son is at the very end. I really needed those big emotions at that point, and it was very cathartic. When Uma completely lets loose and says, "You murdered Koka, father," you can almost hear the chains break that had captivated his heart.
Love this movie. So what would we say in German about Devi?
Devi zeigt auf sensible, anmutige und schockierende Art und Weise, zu was Fanatismus und Aberglaube führen können. Ein poetisches und sehr bewegendes Werk. I give Devi 8 out of 10. It's more like 8.3, but I don't do that.
For me, it's 9 out of 10. It's more like 8.6, but I don't do that either. Did you know that the soul doesn't take another body as soon as it leaves the old one? It can take a year or even decades to find a new form, all based on the karma of the soul.
Let me just... So, what are your thoughts about Devi? Leave a comment. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at the Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at the Buddymeister.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.